Hey, this is Casey Ferris. Thanks for checking out another one of my color grading tutorials. Today we're going to talk about Cinestyle. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Cinestyle, it's a picture style for Canon cameras that people use to get a little bit more dynamic range and give them a little bit more flexibility when it comes to color grading. It gives you an image that's desaturated and flat. It's kind of like as close as you can get to a log image on the Canon DSLRs. So it's great because of the flexibility, but it comes in looking bad. It looks flat and desaturated and not good. So I'm going to show you how to make it look beautiful. And we're going to do that two ways. The first way I'll show you is doing it manually, setting the lift, gamma, gain, and the saturation and everything yourself. And the second way is we'll take a little bit of a shortcut by using a LUT. And along the way, I'll show you some of my tips and techniques for color grading an image. So should be fun. Let's get started. Here I am in Resolve 11. I have 3 shots here. These are some selected shots from a movie trailer from an upcoming film called The Silence. This is by Nick Blackader. Really great movie. I'll post some more links once it comes out so that you guys can check it out because it is really excellent. But today we just have these 3 shots, and we're going to make them look pretty. So the first thing I'm going to do in Resolve, which you should do basically anytime that you open Resolve, save your project. Then I'm going to go down to Project Settings. And here's all of my settings. I'm going to go down to Lookup Tables. And right here under Broadcast Safe, I'm going to make sure that this Broadcast Safe IRE is 0 to 100, and I'm going to click Make Broadcast Safe. And what that's going to do is make sure that none of your colors or brightness or anything is illegal. So if anything gets too saturated or too bright, it's going to automatically dial it back and give you some legal levels. So now that we have that all set up, we can start actually grading. This first shot is an overcast day. Actually, all of these shots, pretty much this whole movie is overcast. So we don't want it to look bright and sunny because it's supposed to be overcast, but we do want it to look good. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my lift. I want to make sure that anything here that's supposed to be black or really, really dark looks black or really, really dark. So the darkest part of the image that I can see is probably right here. These little shadows in this statue. Pretty much nothing else is black in this image. And so I'm going to take these down to nearly black on my parade here. And we can see, so I'll switch to just my parade. The darkest parts of the image are going to be the lowest parts on my parade. So here's one. That's probably going to be these parts right here. So I want to take this little part and move it down to this line because that's going to make it closer to black. So I'm going to take my lift and just roll down on my mouse wheel. And I'm not even looking at my image, I'm just looking at these. So now that's a little bit better. Look back at my image and it looks good. We got dark shadows. So that's a good first step. Now I'm going to take my gain and I'm going to bring that up because I know that sky is probably going to be pretty bright. I don't want to go crazy, but maybe somewhere between 896 and 1023. That looks pretty good. I'm going to set my loop and watch this. So far, that looks pretty nice. Again, this is an overcast day, so it's not going to be super bright and happy and colorful. Now I want to set my saturation. So I'm going to go back to my scopes here. And I'm going to be looking at my vector scope. And the vector scope tells me how saturated things are. The closer this little graph is to the edge, the more saturated it's going to be. So if I just pump this saturation up like crazy and just make this a hideous image, you can see that this saturation is moving farther away from the center of the circle. It's getting crazy. But I don't want to do that because that's silly. So I'm going to reset my saturation. And I'm just going to boost this a little bit, just to where it looks natural to my eye. Saturation is one of those things that's really tricky, technically to you don't really have a technical level of saturation that you want. It's totally based on the shot and the feeling you're going for and that type of thing. This looks pretty good to me. The grass might be just a little bit green, but I think I'm just gonna, I'm gonna dial that back just a little, because that grass is a little bit green. So I think that looks pretty good. And here's the difference. This is where we started, and this is where we're at now. So we just have a nice looking image. Looks natural, no style or anything on it. It just looks like a natural image. So I'm going to move on to my second image. Here we have the girl putting the rose on the casket, car driving away. And this is another scene in the graveyard on an overcast day. Obviously not supposed to be bright and happy. It's a funeral scene. So we're going to grade this in a very similar way. First thing again I'm going to switch to my 2-scope mode here and bring these up. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my black level, and I'm going to use my lift, and the darkest part without question is her coat right here, this black coat. And that looks pretty dark right here, but I'm going to bring it down just a little, just a couple ticks, because I know that's going to be the blackest thing in the image. Now we need to look at whites, and pretty much the brightest thing would be the highlights on this car, which as we can see are nearly white anyway. I'm just going to bring them up a little bit just because we don't need those details and those highlights necessarily. And I'm just looking at the image as a whole to see, okay, does it look natural? Does it look bright? That looks pretty good to me. What I am going to do is bring my gamma down just a little bit, because what that does is just make everything look a little bit richer. It doesn't look as flat. So if you bring it up, looks flat, bring it down, looks richer. And the funny thing is, it doesn't actually change your saturation all that much. It does a little bit, but how saturated this image looks changes a lot with the level of your gamma. And so without adding a bunch of saturation, I can just bring my midtones down a little bit and it looks more saturated. That looks pretty good. I am going to go to my saturation and pump that up a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy, so just a little. And again, we have the before and the after. Pretty nice looking image as a whole. There's definitely some things I would change about this image just looking at it, but we're going to get into that. But as a whole, both these images look pretty good. They match relatively well. And now we're going to go to the third image, which is our guy crying. This is kind of a sad movie. First thing I'm going to do again is look at my shadows, darkest parts right here, and I'm going to find it on my parade. And to me, that shadow looks like it's right about here. So I'm going to take my lift, bring it down to where that is nearly touching 0. I don't want it all the way black, because realistically, it's not going to be all the way black. Not much is totally black in the middle of the day. Blacks look good. I'm going to bring the gain up just a little. It's already pretty bright, so I'll bring it up a little. And again, I'm going to play with my gamma here, bring it down just a little, add some punch to the skin tones and things. Any image shot with Cinestyle generally needs the midtones to go down, especially with the skin tones, because what Cinestyle does is kind of flatten out the skin tones. That's the thing I really don't like about Cinestyle. There's a lot of really good things about Cinestyle, but it just messes up the skin tones, and so you usually have to do some work on the skin tones with anything shot with Cinestyle. This is actually lit and shot pretty well, so it's not too bad. Looks pretty good. I might take the gamma down just a little more and pump my saturation. That's usually what Cinestyle needs. It needs the lift to go down, the gain to go up, the gamma to go down, and the saturation to go up a little bit. And you'll usually have a pretty good looking image. So let's look at all of our images. This one looks nice, looks nice, looks nice. The only thing I might say is this looks a little bit blue. And so what I'm going to do is take my gain color wheel here and just move it just ever so slightly warmer. And I don't want to go too crazy, just to warm this up a little bit. So we have the before and the after. So that's our first pass, and we did all of this manually just using the controls in Resolve. So now what I want to do is show you how to do the same thing, but in a fraction of the time with a LUT. So what I'm going to do for each of these is I'm going to make a new version. And all I'm doing is hitting Control Y to add a new version and resetting the grade. Control Y, reset the grade. So all of these are on version 2. Everything is reset. So now we're going to do our first primary grade using a LUT. So on my first shot, I'm going to go up to my node tree and I'm going to hit Alt S, and that's going to add another serial node. And I'm just going to label this so that we know that this is where our LUT goes. So I'm going to right click and go to 3D LUT and select GC Cinestyle Rec 709. This is a LUT from Ground Control. It's part of the Victory LUT pack. And the coolest part is the LUT that we're using today, you can actually download for free. So if you go to Free LUTs, and right here, Free Cinestyle to Rec 709 LUT, all you have to do is sign up and you can download this LUT for free. This LUT is specifically designed for Cinestyle footage to make it look good. It takes it from flat desaturated image to punchy saturated image. And all I did was put this LUT on there, and let's look at the comparison here. Here's our manual grade, and here's the grade with the LUT. So it does look a little bit different. I'd say the shadows are probably deeper in the LUT, but that's stuff that we can adjust later. And the difference is the manual version took a couple minutes to make, and this one I just applied a LUT. Now maybe we don't like how deep these shadows are. What I'm going to do is go to my first node, and I'm going to label this and I'll call it tweaks. So what we're going to do is tweak our image before the LUT so that the final image comes out closer to what we're looking for. And I think all I'm going to do is just boost my gamma just a little. And let's look at our original image here. So that's our original image, and this is the one with the LUT. Maybe I'll add just a little more gamma. Original image, LUT. Original, LUT. Original, LUT. Very, very similar. All I had to do was one little tweak, and we have a very similar image to what we would have made with a whole bunch of work. So huge time saver, but this is a pretty simple shot. Let's go to the next shot. And what I'm gonna do is just middle click and copy this grade over. And I'm gonna reset this node. So here's the image with just the LUT. It's much more punchy than this image came out. It's very, very punchy. And the reason for that is it's just a different exposure. There's different colors, and anytime that you put a LUT on an image, the way it comes out is really dependent on the original image. There isn't a magic LUT that makes every single image look perfect all the time. So again, what we can do is do some tweaks to make this look a little bit closer to what we're going for. So the first thing I'd say is that these shadows are a little bit too deep, so I'm just going to bring up my lift, just punch it up just a little, and I'm also going to punch up my gamma a little bit. So now we have an image that's closer to what we're looking for. Here's our first grade, and here's the grade with the LUT. Might be a little bit saturated. Here's our first grade, grade with the LUT. First grade, grade with the LUT. Might bring the gamma down a little more. And so now we have two very similar images again. Just a couple tweaks under that LUT, and we're back to where we were with, 5 or 6 steps doing it manually. Let's go to the next shot. Again, I'm going to copy this grade and reset my first node. And so now we have just our LUT on here. And here's without the LUT and with the LUT. And this is pretty good, maybe a little punchy. So I'm going to go to my tweaks. I think this is pretty good. I might take the saturation down just a little, and maybe the midtones down just a little. And let's compare it with our original. Now we have this warm push in our original shot, and I can fix that too. I'll go to on my tweaks node, I'll just move this over a little bit warmer and maybe desaturate a little more. And now we have a similar look, and I actually like the one with the LUT a little better because this LUT has a curve in it that, gives a little bit more contrast and style that we didn't build in before. And we could add that curve manually, but it's a little bit more work. So I'll go to my original one and, give it a little bit of a contrast curve here. Now we're getting a little similar look, but in our shot with the LUT, we just put the LUT on and did a couple tweaks, messed with the gamma a little bit, brought down the saturation, and we're where we want to be. So that's the cool thing about LUTs. There isn't anything magical about them. They're just a tool that can save you time. If you use the right LUT, especially a LUT that's designed for the camera that you're using, the type of footage that you're shooting, you can put that on your footage and tweak it just a little bit and save yourself a bunch of time and a bunch of work. Especially if you're doing, several hundred of these shots or a couple thousand of these shots, every little tweak that you have to make adds up. And if you get nearly the same result using a LUT, then it's really a no-brainer. I mean, it saves you time. So there you go. That's 2 ways of doing a primary grade on Cinestyle footage. These same techniques work for just about any type of footage in just about any program. All right, so I think that about does it for me. Again, just a reminder to check out those LUTs, groundcontrolcolor.com. There's a whole pack of LUTs made for Cinestyle called the Victory Pack. It's only 20 bucks. Check it out if you're interested. If you like this tutorial, make sure to let me know by hitting that like button. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comments below. I read them, I'll respond to them. I appreciate feedback. I'm here for you. You know what I'm saying? If you want more tutorials like this or any other tutorial related to post-production or color grading or anything like that, make sure to hit subscribe because I post more tutorials all the time. And then you can share them and your friends will see them and you'll become better friends with them. you'll probably get even more friends, and you'll have them to your house and you'll have them over for dinner, and you'll play games until like 9:30 or 10 at night. And you'll be like, oh, I got to turn in. And they'll be like, no, we don't want to turn in. We want to hang out. And you're like, okay. So you hang out until like 1 a.m. And they're like, seriously, guys. And they're like, why don't we just stay here? All because you subscribe to my channel. It's awesome. I think that about does it for my sign off. My name again is Casey Ferris. I'll catch you later.